So ahoy again for the recording. I'm Rebecca. I am here pinch hitting for Joe at Heart to Heart. And today I'm going to talk to you about some things that interest me. First, a word about volunteering to be in the hot seat. I know there was a meeting a week ago or so of people that have over the years offered to step into the hot seat and share something with the group. I just want to say that if I could do it, you can. I have the peculiar aspect that is sort of, I'm not afraid to make an absolute idiot out of myself. I hope that gives others permission to maybe, loosen the grip of perfection enough to, maybe not let it all hang out, but, to be in touch with, be kind to yourself, let yourself do it. So why would you do it? You would do it to maybe as a nudge, a little nudge to finding your own voice. Like, what do I have to say? Or maybe you feel like you've been very negative or something, and you're, what is helpful to you, and can you fashion it into a nice little package to share? And it will expand your sense of wholeness, expanding your capacity as a vessel for holding it all. Your ABCs. You want to be a bigger container because we contain legions. The older we get, there's so much stuff in there, so many experiences, so many things. And you can hold it all. We're learning how to hold it all at the same time and not be poisoned by any of it. What's that I hear? Huh? Is it Rudyard effing Kipling? Oh, yes. He rises up out of the unconscious sometime in grade school, forced to memorize that poem. If you could keep your head when those around you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, and they will blame it on you, then you'll be a man, my son. Very annoying right off the bat as a woman to hear that. And I'm sure all you strong women out here, you know what I'm talking about. Well, how do you learn all that stuff to be a man, my son? There's two ways of learning things. There's experience and there's description. But experience, in my opinion and in my experience, is the best teacher of all. We learn with our bodies how to do things. Things get in our muscle memory. We do learn a lot by description, however. We kind of swallow whatever we see in the printed word. Sometimes we believe everything we read, even if we haven't experienced it for ourselves. I remember an old Chinese proverb: it is better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. And I traveled those 10,000 miles when I was young and strong, lots of traveling. But now I have a lot of books and it is so wonderful. It is so wonderful. So here I am today with another book. It's The Heroine's Journey by Maureen Murdoch, first published in 1990. It also has, as with all good marketing, self-help, psychology things, there's even a workbook. Of course, I bought it all, used copies. Have I worked through every last page? No. But I hope I could share something to you about it with you today that will be at least helpful in springboarding your meditation. A funny point is when I went for the Heroine's Journey, I realized I'd already bought this book from Amazon 2 times in the past 15 years. Each time it bounced right off and back out into the ethos. I sent it to Goodwill. I put in I don't know what. But anyway, I got it again. I got it again. It must be important, I said to myself. So she wrote this book in 1990. And she is a psychotherapist, a Jungian psychotherapist. if that means something to you. And based on Carl Jung's ideas of archetypes. And he also had a archetype of the feminine and an archetype of the masculine. Well, to make myself read it, that's why I volunteered to do this talk. Now, having read it, I'm not sure I could do it justice. It is, it's full. It is chock full of myths, all kinds of things. Is it a journey just for women? Is it just a women's book? I think not. I think it's a journey to wholeness. And reading Ken Wilber and not finishing it either, but managing to get the gist, this idea of wholeness, that there are parts of you that could be developed a bit more. So I like the word wholeness. Let's call it, we can call it a journey. A journey to
back me on.
Sorry? There we go. Now I'm trying to get my gallery view. I was just looking at Joe's face. Okay, now I can see all of you beautiful, wonderful people. Okay, so last month we at our intensive Zoom retreat, Dancing with Spirit, we listened to Joe talk about the hero's journey. Maybe you were there, maybe not. Maybe you've heard of the hero's journey. Hero's journey comes from a book by Joseph Campbell, very famous, very well-regarded philosopher, super brilliant guy. He wrote this book in 1946, The Hero of 1,000 Faces. And you may have seen there was a program on PBS called about the Hero of 1,000 Faces, and it's available Netflix, Prime. You can watch that. It's very interesting. His idea is that there is all the myths that have ever existed for all time. There's really only one story, and it's the same, with many different steps accounting for all possible variants. It is called the monomyth. And it's become a very kind of a boilerplate map for any kind of screenplay or story writing. And you can see it in a lot of movies to the point where you're like, oh no, another male protagonist taken from the ordinary world out into the extraordinary world to get something, to come back. It's the main parts of the journey of the hero are separation from the ordinary world. Luke Skywalker at home, I don't know, playing badminton on the planet. I'm not an expert on the Star Wars. And then there's a call to action, that maybe you ignore it first and you have to go out there and do that thing. Bring back the head of the Gorgon. Bring back the princess, bring back the head of the dragon or the treasure, or maybe even just, the self that's somehow transformed by the experience. It's a journey of outward glory. Hero goes off to war. Hero goes to college. Hero goes to seek your fortune. Hero goes and travels to the Great Gathering or to the Wailing Wall. It kind of, and there's a sense of initiation. And then you'll be a man, my son. You bring home the treasure, the elixir, the spoils, the Holy Grail, perfect wife. There are many diagrams online of the story grid and the steps and so forth. It's basically a map for going out and doing anything. I tell you, to a certain extent, sometimes if I got to go on errands in my car, it's a bit of a hero's journey for me. Do I have my phone? Do I have my brassiere on? Have I got my armor? Can I go out there? Is my phone sharp, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the hero's journey, I guess women in these groups that Maureen Murdoch was leading in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, uh, was curious. What about us? What about the women's journey? And she was a student of Joseph Campbell, and she even asked him. Poor Joseph Campbell said this. He's dead now. I'm sure he regrets it. But at one point, he did say this. She said, Dr. Campbell, how do I understand the woman's journey relating to the journey of the hero? And he said to her, women don't need to make the journey. In the whole mythological tradition, the woman is already there. I don't know. My wounded inner feminine is like, rawr. I think this can't be. So what do you mean? You don't have to go anywhere. We just sit there and look pretty, smile pretty. What is this saying, really? I think there is something to it in that women, yeah, we are the best. We are gorgeous. We are beautiful. We can do anything. We can do anything you can do better. It's true. And yet we cannot really, it's not really acknowledged in the way that, well, it should be. Well, what can you say about Joseph Campbell? Maureen says in 1990, well, Joseph Campbell certainly liked women and was amused by them. But he just didn't realize how overworked and out of touch with their feminine nature, women of that era were feeling. I think today it's true. I've been in kind of voluntary self-isolation in my house where, in my own little corner, I can be whatever I want to be. They're still out there. It's different. And women are still belittled, and their bodies are, men help themselves to your body, whether it's just by looking at you and telling you, oh, you missed something over there, some kind of, you're not quite perfect. Anyway, we all have this inner feminine and inner masculine archetype. There are many other archetypes too, probably. And they are deeply wounded. Why? Because it's a man's world. And the dictates of the capitalist system and the, more extraction and destruction. And there's no end to the demand for more and more. How much money is enough? It's a very patriarchal dictate that's made it hard for us women. I know my own inner masculine here alone in my house. I still have that voice. It comes from 1,000 men's voices I've heard over my life saying, you've got some tidying to do. You need to heal yourself. You've made your bed, now lie in it. All of those things. Women can get very good at self-flagellation. We don't need you to tell us your hair's out of place. We already know how many hours have been spent plucking and squeezing and, examining under the microscope. Some of us even cut ourselves or starve ourselves or spend thousands of dollars on facials, plastic surgery, try to look as beautiful as possible. Well, you just have to be beautiful if you're a woman. Or handbags. What's up with that? $20,000 handbag as some sort of a treasure thing. I don't know. I relate that to what my mother told me. You never want to be called an old bag. And to that end, yeah, you take that dusty old brown handbag you've been carrying, ditch it in. But it might feel like the only control that we have under the patriarchy. Here's a speech I've got to perform for you. You probably recognize it if you've been to the movies in the past couple of years. It is literally impossible to be a woman. You're so beautiful. You're so smart. And it kills me. Kills me you don't think you're good enough. Like we always have to be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy. but you also have to be thin. You have to have money, but you cannot ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane. But if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be part of a sisterhood. But always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find some way to acknowledge that. But always be grateful. Never get old. Never be rude. Never show off. Never be selfish. Never fall down. Never fail. Never show fear. Never get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory. And nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but everything is your own fault. So you probably recognize that speech, or, if you saw the movie Barbie, Greta Gerwig wrote that speech for America Ferrera as one of the best parts of the movie Barbie. So our culture is entirely male defined, and we women learn to see ourselves through this lens of the male view. We look at other women with this lens. We have that. It's when we see ourselves like this, we always come up deficient, always lacking somehow in the qualities that men value. So with this idea that the game is rigged, how can a woman be a hero? How can a woman ever have equal rights when the sight of her bare shoulder gives a man an erection? It's her fault if he attacks her. So what is this heroine's journey? Back to the book. Well, Maureen Murdoch says that the feminine journey is about going down deep into the soul, healing and reclaiming, while the masculine journey is up and out to spirit. Our mothers and their mothers before them have been imprisoned like Lot's wife in an image projected upon them by males. Women who were mothers in the 40s and 50s didn't have many opportunities to pursue their own goals, and they were manipulated and contained and suppressed with the assistance of advertising, girdles, and Valium. So it's become the task of the daughters to unbind and heal these feminine wounds. Joe, can you show the diagram of the heroine's journey? The heroine's journey is it's a circle, it's a spiral. You can be anywhere on the journey and anywhere else on the journey at the same time. It's not just a linear thing or a circle that starts here and ends in the same place. It's more like a spiral. So just briefly, without boring you to death with the academic scholarly qualities, and this is in the psychology women's studies department is where the Heroine's Journey book comes from. At the beginning, you start out with separation from the feminine. That's kind of like leaving the world of the known and going out there. The woman, I picture myself at home with my mother, too young to be in school, going about all the things mother was up to. It was just wonderful. But then at some point, there's an with separate from the feminine. You really, maybe you realize mother's not all that powerful. Ooh, mother's
in and out.
not perfect, etc. Identification with the masculine. Maybe you decide, wow, my mother was a housewife, or I want to go here, I want to go to China, I want to go everywhere. You identify with the masculine and you make friends and find allies and experts, and there's a road of trial where you may meet all kinds of other beings, some of them benevolent. Some of trials is part of the hero's journey you undergo. The boon of success. And like in the hero's journey, hey, I got the prize, I got the thing. Maybe it's the big corporate job, maybe it's the big salary. But then in step 5, after you realize maybe it's not all that, maybe it's not the only thing that there is, you begin to feel like you're still missing something. And at that point, there's the initiation and descent to the goddess. And that could take the form as just a deep period of depression. It's a journey to within, a soul searching, doing shadow work, that kind of thing. And sort of that's the other half of the journey there. And those details of urgent yearning to reconnect with the feminine lead to things like maybe, you broke off with your mother. Maybe there's some kind of a split that you had from your mother so that you could go out into the world and get the big job. Maybe you had to deny all those things that mother taught you in order to be out there in the man's world. Maybe you'll be able to heal that. And maybe then you can also heal that wounded masculine. Maybe those qualities of perfectionism and control and so forth, and that voice in your head maybe can be healed too. And finally, the goal is integration of the masculine and the feminine. And so this is Maureen Murdoch's concept of the steps that women go through, or men seeking to recover their inner feminine, which may have been suppressed, from day one. Big boys don't cry kind of thing. Joe, let's show the picture of the heroine's journey as a spiral, if we can. Anyway, it's a spiral, and I drew this picture. It's more like a spiral. If you want to have some kind of visual idea of it in your mind while you meditate, the movement is in a spiral direction, one way or the other. Wholeness, not so easy to put your finger on. So let's see, I think I went through all these. I'm going to move on to the integration of the masculine and feminine, the wholeness. This reminds me of that sign behind you that says not to. We can put the diagram down now. Not to. What happens there? And you can, like skipping to the last few pages of a book. You don't have to slog through every single step. Where is this book taking me? It's to the not to. It's to the wholeness. The heroine, she remembers her true nature, and she comes to understand that's both of them together. Wise words from June Singer, who's another analytical Jungian psychologist. A wise person once said that the goal of the masculine principle, goal of the feminine principle, is completion. If you are perfect, you cannot be complete, because you must leave out all the imperfections of your nature. If you're complete, you cannot be perfect. For being complete means that you contain good and evil, right and wrong, hope and despair. So perhaps it's best to be content with something less than perfection and something less than completion. Perhaps we need to be more willing to accept life as it comes. So we're finding out about being instead of doing, and as the sacred task of the feminine, to learn to value just the being part. And we've talked about that here many times. It's the sacred task of the feminine. Women, in art and dreams, they're seeing the image of the vessel. I think we've talked about the vessel, the being a bigger container. And that speaks to this sort of inner aspect of the great feminine. So Joseph Campbell, another quote from Joseph Campbell, much later than that other one. When the world changes, then the religion has to be transformed. The only mythology that is valid today is the mythology of the planet. And we don't have such a mythology, Joseph Campbell said. Yesterday, when I shared yesterday, I had this thought, but of course it escaped me. I didn't have it written down, with those shares are kind of spontaneous. I was remembering the pandemic. Remember the pandemic images maybe you saw in your social media of the air quality suddenly getting a lot better. We were busy being and not so busy doing. I'm not saying doing is wrong. I'm not saying the masculine is wrong. I'm just saying you can't have that all masculine all the time. Take a break. So that brings me to this goddess Gaia. When I think about that force of nature that's still there, after Chernobyl, after a certain number of years, it's still there. That little girl that I showed you in the beginning, pointing something out, so delighted, not worried about, do I look okay? Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Do I have a zit? Whatever kind of, crazy obsession with beauty becomes. That's Gaia in there too. And it's part of all of us. She was the very first deity, the first god in Greek mythology. She emerged out of the great void, out of the great chaos, and she gave birth to all the other gods. Why was the first god a female figure? Why not God the Father? Well, because we could see very well that everyone came out of a woman's body. Everyone. And we were all born of woman. So somewhere before it was figured out that men had anything to do with life at all, women were revered. The personification of creation. Gaia in all of us are held here, this beautiful green planet, our home. And there's a great need to respect the planet and nurture her, the archetype, the goddess, the lost feminine parts of yourself that you've suppressed in order to make it out in the world. So we're and our inner wounded masculine. And we hope that we can let them heal each other